Welcome to this lesson discussing congruent figures. The first word we're going to pop in our math dictionary is third angles theorem. If two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then the third pair of angles are congruent. For example, if angle A is congruent to angle D, angle B is congruent to angle E, that says that angle C and angle F are congruent. They are the third pair of angles. Because the other two are congruent, that third pair must be congruent. Here's our first example. So angle A is congruent to angle D. Angle B is congruent to angle E. They're both right angles. And therefore, we have angle C is congruent to angle F. So y squared is equal to 3y squared minus 72. Now, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to combine those y squared. So I'm going to subtract 3y squared. So this is like saying one of those minus three of them would give us a negative 2y squared equals negative 72. Divide by negative 2. Get the numbers away. We get y squared equals 36. Now, to solve this, we need to take what's called the square root of both sides. So the square root of y equals, so that cancels, square root of 36 is 6. So we get y equals 6, so the measure here would be y 6 to the second power, which is 36 degrees, and meaning this would be 36 degrees as well. Okay. Congruent figures have the same size and shape. Circle the triangles that appear to be congruent. Well, in my eyes, these two triangles appear to be congruent. They have the same size, same shape, one's just rotated. So for polygons that are congruent, they are congruent if and only if all their corresponding parts are congruent. So if we say this triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF, we need to list all the corresponding angles and sides that would be congruent. So for the triangle, it's angle A is congruent to angle D. And I'm going to put AB is congruent to side ED. I'm going to switch colors. Now we have angle B is congruent to angle E. They both have the 2 tick marks. So therefore these two are congruent. And the side that they would correspond with would be BC congruent to EF. Go from blue to green to blue to green. Now the last angle would be angle C congruent to angle F. And their side in between would be, I'm going to say CA congruent to FD. Now the order in which you say this stuff has meaning to it. For this polygon, this four-sided figure, we've got polygon PQRS is congruent to polygon WXYZ. So without color coding this one, I can just go straight in order. So angle P is congruent to angle W. Angle Q is congruent to angle X. There's the second letter. Angle R is congruent to angle Y. And angle S is congruent to angle Z. Now when we label the sides, I need to go in order with those same letters. So PQ would be congruent to WX. QR congruent to XY. RS is congruent to YZ, and the last one would be SP congruent to ZW. So we're going to take some practice here. And I'm not even going to look at the diagram. Don't even need it. I'm just going to look at the order in which it is written to list the three pairs of congruent sides. Well, each side is made up of two letters. So if I go in order here, I can say side CA is congruent to JS. I will use it just to mark stuff. So CA and JS. Makes sense. Now let's try two more. Let's go AT, SD. So AT is congruent to SD. So here's AT, there's SD. And the last one we're going to go with is, I'm going to go TC congruent to DJ. So TC, TJ works out. Now the angles are going to be easier in order because angle C lines up with J. So C and J are congruent. A lines up with S, so angle A is congruent to angle S. And T lines up with D, so angle T is congruent to angle D. So with corresponding sides and corresponding angles, it's important to understand the order in which you state it.